got here, we've got some function values right here, as you can see. Remember, this inside here is x, and this is y. So when x is -2, y is going to be 2. When x is 1, it's -1. We've got 0, 3. When f is 1, we're 0. When x is 2, we're 2. -2 is 3. And when the function is 2, x is 4. And we've got a graph on this thing over here. This is going to be our parent function. And what we're going to start talking about here is how we come through on these things and do some transformations. We're going to do translations, vertical and horizontal. We're going to do dilations, both vertical and horizontal. We'll also do reflections about the x-axis and the y-axis. So remember, when you take a look, this right here is our parent that we're going to be dealing with. It's our original function. Okay, so what we're going to do when you take a look at this, let's take a look at this guy right here. So complete the tables. Let's take a look at what we're doing. What this tells me is my process here is I'm going to be adding 2 to my x value. So here's my x value, but this tells me I have to add 2 to it, so it's going to be -4 plus 2, which will equal to 2. And if we, -2. Then if we go back and look at our original table, back from page 1, when x is -2, y is 2. All right. -3, my process here is going to be -3 plus 2, which is -1. And f of -1 is 1. Okay, then I'll have -2 plus 2, which is 0. Remember, these are going to be my new x values. These are my old x values. These are from the parent, the original parent function. So what we're going to do now is, instead of plotting these old x values, we're going to plot these new x values versus our new y values. So we go back in, we take a look at our table. F of 0 is 3. Now I'm going to have a -1 plus 2, which is 1, and that function value is 0. Remember, again, I'm getting these y values by looking back at my original table for the new x values. And then I'm going to have 0 plus 2, which is 2. And that is 2 is a y value. Then I'm going to have 1 plus 2, which is 3. And that's a -2 for that corresponding y value. You think of this as f of x new. Right? And then 2 plus 2, which is 4. That gets me my 4. I look back for when x is 4 on my table, and it gives me a 2. All right? So now what I'm going to do, what we're actually going to do is graph these x values with these y values. Well, what this did was this gave me the x value into my original parent. And I know what I'm going to do is change it. So now what I'm going to do is graph these things. Okay? So I'm going to have a -4, 2, which is right there. Then I've got a -3, 1. Let me connect them. And you see the purple here was our original. And then I've got a -2, 3. And then we'll have a -1, 0. And then I'm going to have 0, 2. I'm going to have 1, -2. And most of you at this point have figured out what's going on here, and I'm going to have 2, 2. So if you take a look at it, this point on my parent corresponds to this point. And all I've done is I have shifted this thing over 2 units. This point on my parent corresponds to this point. So what I have done is translated 2 units to the left. So essentially what I have done here is I have translated two units to the left. And there's going to be sort of a general rule here. When you're adding inside, it's going to be in the x direction, which this one was, and it will be in the opposite direction from your sign. So now let's pop down and take a look at number 3 and see what it is doing. Okay, again, I deal with the same kind of thing I had before, except I'm going to take these x values, I'm going to subtract 2 from them. This is going to be 0 minus 2, and this tells me the x value in my parent. Now, based on what we saw up above, when we had a +2, we moved 2 units to the left. We've got a negative here. You would think we will probably be moving 2 units to the right, but let's graph it and see. So when I go back in for this x value in my parent and take a look at it, my y value is 2. 1, so I'm going to have 1 minus 2 gives me a -1. And a -1 corresponds to 1. And then I'm going to have 2 minus 2, which is 0. That gives me 3. 3 minus 2, which is 1. Excuse me, 0. 4 minus 2, which is 2. And that gave me a 2. 5 minus 2 is 3. Gives me a -2. And 6 minus 2 is 4. And that corresponds to a function value of 2. So now we come back up and plot these things. So I've got 0, 2. Automatically you start thinking about these 2 points, don't you? Then I've got 1, 1. Excuse me, -1, 1. I knew I had something wrong. So I'm going to have 0, 2. No, I was right. 0, 2. And 1, 1. Okay? And 2, 3. And 3, 0. 4, 2. 5, -2. And then 6, 2. Okay, so again, this point corresponds to this one, so I shift to the right 2. This one corresponds to this one. So what I've done here is I have shifted 2 units to the right. Okay, so let's come back in and take a look, compare each graph to the original. What stays the same and what changes? So if we look at these, okay, all we're doing on these, okay, so what stays the same in here? Well, we still got the same general shape. So the shape is the same. We've just moved the graph horizontally. And that's the whole idea here. Describe the effect on graph on adding and subtracting a constant for f. Adding and subtracting a constant from x is going to translate the graph horizontally. It's going to shift it to the left or right. Okay. Page 3. We've got the same thing here, except we're doing something a little bit different. Instead of adding to x, what I'm going to do is I'm adding 2 to my original x value. So I come back in and I look at what f of x was at -2, and f of x at -2 was 2. And then I'm going to add 2 to it, which gives me 4. So my new y value now is 4. Now take a look at what f of -1 was, and it was 1. And I'm going to add 2 to it. That gives me 3. There's my new y value. F of 0 was 3 plus 2 gives me 5. F of 1 was 0 plus 2 is 2. F of 2 was 2. F of 3 was -2. And f of 4 was 2, and I add 2 to it. And I'm going to plot these points up. So I've got a -2, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to have a -1, 3. I'm going to have 0, 5. And then 1, 2, then 2, 4, 3, 0, and then 4, 4. So if we take a look at this, notice these 2 points are the same. All right? These 2. What we've done is I've taken this, moved it up 2. I've taken this one and moved it up 2. So what we've done is we have shifted or translated 2 units up. So anytime you add a value to your function, you're going to shift it, the original graph, which is purple, you're going to shift it that many units up. So one more, let's come in and take a look at it. Again, on this one, instead of adding 2, I'm going to subtract 2 from my function value. So I go into the table on page 1 again. We keep referring back to that. That's our original function. So f of -2 was 2, and I'm going to subtract 2 from it. That's going to give me 0. So my new y value is 0. F of -1 was 1. Minus 2 is -1. F of 0 was 3. Minus 2 gives me 1. F of 1 was 0. Minus 2 is -2. F of 2 was 2. Remember these numbers are coming from there. F of 3 is -2. And f of 4 was 2. Okay, so now we come in and we plot these points. So I'm going to have a -2, 0. I'm going to have a -1, -1. I'm going to have a 0, 1, 1, -2, 2, 0, 3, -4, and 4, 0. And again, if we take a couple of points, we can identify pretty easily. See what happens is I've taken my function and I've moved it down 2 units. So this translates or shifts f of x down 2 units. Okay, again, our shape has stayed the same. And actually, the size of this thing has stayed the same. We have just shifted the original graph up or down. Okay, so the rest of the pages will be your classwork.